G'day runners, welcome to Running Alive. I'm Jason Montfort. This is the Marathon Project 2021. So what we're doing in this one is we're having a look at the first week of my marathon base training. At this point, I'm 22 weeks out from the goal race, which is the Melbourne Marathon. And what I'm aiming to achieve here is a sub 3 hour marathon. I've done that once before, and that was 12 years ago. So I'm aiming to turn the clock back over a decade. I've completed the general preparation period. I'm now moving into the marathon base phase. After that, it'll be the build phase, specific phase, peak phase, race day. But let's look at the first week of marathon base training. So let's jump into Final Surge. I have my training synced to Strava and Garmin Connect as well, but it's Final Surge where I use to keep my notes and do most of my analysis of the training. When I first planned out the structure of my training, their general base phase was going to go for another week. Things changed in that and I've started a week early, so ignore the green strip across the top that says general base. Day number 1, right, the long run on the plan was 2 hours and 30. And I covered 2 hours, 30 minutes, 7 seconds. So the goal of this run is to do it in zone 2. So below that first lactate threshold. For me, that's 80% of heart rate max as the top limit there. And for this run, I didn't want to watch paces, watch distance too much. I set the zone limit on zone 2, so it would beep if I was below and beep if I was above. And otherwise, I just ran on feel for the most part. And you know what? It worked out quite well. So let's have a look at the course. It wasn't an overly hilly course at all. In fact, I'd say it's predominantly flat. Overall elevation gain was 295 metres, which is, look, it's a moderate run. It's not hilly. There's a few rolling hills, a couple of steep moments, but nothing that really challenges me. But what you will notice in this run is I live on a hill, so I start high, drops down, up and down, out and back. Then on the way back, all the way back up the hill. So the challenge is the heart rate and the pacing. I had my watch set to take 5 kilometre splits, and if we look at it this way, average pace 5:53 per kilometre, 6:44, 5:56, 5:54, and 6:29 per k, and it all gives an average of 6:11, which, look, it's a long way out from a sub 3 hour marathon. It's the start of the base phase. It's 22 weeks out. I think I'm on track. Later in that day, I hit the strength training, and that was a series of core training exercises, back, obliques, hips, along with some plyometric training, so some side-to-side jumps and some counter movement jumps. Next day was easy, 4 kilometre run in 27 minutes. That's running with the dog. Pace is dictated by her. It will definitely be below zone 2 training for me. Later on, 10 kilometre run, keeping it below first lactate threshold, completely run on feel, only have an alarm set in case I go over it. Otherwise, it can be as easy as I want, just as long as it feels smooth and comfortable. Next day, another run with CC the dog, and then it's the hill session. Now, this session was 2 sets of 6 reps. I measured out 160 metres uphill, turned out to be about a 5% gradient, and a super easy jog back down. Now, the effort on these runs was meant to be fast, not at 100%, not a full-on sprint, but something that I knew I would struggle with to maintain for all the reps. In between the 2 sets, a bit over 5 minutes walking recovery, and then repeated it. Look, the paces on that second one were about a second or 2, a little bit slower, for about the same effort. It's pretty simple. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Take a break, up, down, up, down, up, down again, and jog back home. And most importantly, I felt I was able to maintain my technique for this run. Then later in the day, it's back to some strength training. Strength training involved 1 set of each exercise, targeting the main movements and muscle groups. Now, the reason I'm aiming for 1 set is if I do it hard enough, then I'll probably get about 80% benefit of the strength training that I'm aiming for, hopefully without the fatigue that carries over into the next lot of training sessions. Is the benefit in the strength training really worth the recovery cost afterwards? At this stage, I'm not too sure, but it's what I'm going with. So it was squats, single leg calf raises, pull-ups, overhead press, and using the ab wheel. Simple, done, all completed in just over 20 minutes. Thursday, very similar to the Tuesday run, super easy run with the dog in the morning, and then another run of close to an hour, done very easily. All done on feel, not watching the watch or the heart rate too much at all. Turns out to be a little bit slower than the Tuesday. Then Friday, down to the running track, and this is where I did the VO2 max intervals. So this run, I'm using the velocity of VO2. The aim is for a pace of about 340 per kilometre, but I'm running 800 metres, which gives me close to 3 minutes. Because of the rules of the track, I'm running it in lane 3 and not one of the inside 2 lanes. And as a result, the extra distance of lane 3, an extra 15 metres per lap, that gives it 830 metres for the rep, which translates to 3 minutes, 2 seconds as the target. Recovery-wise is to jog 400 metres in 3 minutes as well, so half the speed. And the idea is to do as many repetitions that I feel like I can, stopping on the one where I feel like it's the last one where I can hold that pace. As it turned out in this session, that was 3 repetitions. I hit 302 for the first one, 304 for the second, and 302 for the third. Later in that day, strength training again. So same exercises as on the Wednesday session, except this time I'm adding more volume and extra exercises into the mix. For the same exercises, instead of 1 set, I kept the same weight and did 3 sets. 3 sets. But in each set, half the repetitions that I did when I did the single set. After that, I also added in some extension sets as well to get the volume and target some supplementary work that should hopefully help my marathon training. Squats, rear foot elevated split squats, and step up. Single leg calf raises, single leg soleus raises, bent leg calf raises as well. Pull ups, single arm rows, base pulls, overhead press, and push ups. Then Saturday, easy run, but the difference on this run is I added in a lot more hills. My legs were trashed. Easy was still felt hard, so I backed off the intensity. The heart rate was a fair bit lower than my other easy runs, and it was a struggle. It was hailing. That probably didn't help the feel of this run, but certainly much slower. So if we look at the actual details, the average pace of this one was 6:28. And if we go back to the Tuesday run, average pace was 5:41. So heading towards a full minute per K slower. That leads me into Sunday, a rest day. And I'll tell you what, my body was needing it. So with this training, I actually managed to accumulate 86 kilometres. That's a decent step up from all my training recently. So if I go back to the general preparation period, with the 2 weeks beforehand, I only had 32 kilometres and 15 kilometres in the previous 2 weeks. And that was due to the fall that I had on the stairs and doing a bit of damage to my patellar tendon. Now that's recovered, I was able to step up. But prior to that, over the 4 weeks, I averaged 61 kilometres per week in the general preparation. Now, it's argued that there's the 10% rule as the maximum that you should increase your training volume. I don't fully believe in that. It's got a place in terms of that it can help people not increase their training by too much. But you've got to look at it also of what is the actual load, and volume itself, how many kilometres or miles that you run, isn't always the best indicator of training load. Sometimes it's how hard you go. For me, the way I'm doing the hill training, the way I'm doing the VO2 max intervals is, yes, it's providing that high intensity stimulus, but it's quite limited. It's not destroying my body. Also, the strength training, I'm backing up on those hard days, so I'm adding load to the body in some ways, but hopefully taking the running load or the impact of running away from me while still getting most of the benefits that I'm aiming for. Will it work? Time will tell, and we'll see how it unfolds over the next few weeks. But one of the most important aspects of this are my rest days. Now, traditionally, I don't take a lot of rest days. I've always had the mindset of accumulating volume over time, but now I'm in my 40s and doesn't work. My body actually needs the break. It needs the rest days. So through this marathon base phase, I want to increase that density of training, have the hard sessions close together, do a chunk of days together, then recover. To be able to sustain this, to get the most out of this base training, the rest days are probably going to be the most important element of it. And these rest days allow me to forget about the running for a moment. I don't have to think about it. I don't feel as pressured with my training. And so far, I've noticed that's given me quite a good break. I was looking forward to having the day off as scheduled rather than being forced to take the day off because I'm completely stuffed. Then I can just focus on what else is for that day. And usually with it being a Sunday, it's kids sport, bit of family. So that's the first week of marathon base training. I'll break down the individual sessions into their own videos. Hopefully I can keep an update every week for you. We'll see how it goes. I'm Jason Montfort. This is Running Alive. Keep on running.